Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Asatara Satashi Śrīmad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder-Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dhamma Ki Jai. Mathura Dhamma Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dhamma Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dhamma Ki Jai. Gangamai Jamuna Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya. Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Sarasvati Deve. Gauravani Pacharane. Nirvisesa Sundavadi Paskatyade Satarane. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Panchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's June 6, 2025. And we're in Melbourne, Australia. We're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 8, which is the sons of Sagara meet Lord Kapiladev, text 22. Ye deha bhajas triguna pradana gunam vipasyanti utana tamascha yan maya mohita chetasastvam vidusva samstana bahir prakasha. Ye deha bhajas triguna pradana gunan vipasyat yuhava tamascha yan mayaya mohita chetasastvam vidusva samstana bahi prakasa. Please chant. Ye deha bhajas triguna pradana gunan vipasyanti utavatamascha yan mayaya mohita chetasastvam vidusva samstamna bahi prakasha. Ye deha bhajas triguna pradana Ladies? Yea, those persons who deha bhajaha have accepted the material body, triguna pradanaha, influenced by the three modes of material nature, gunan, the manifestation of the three modes of material nature, vipasyanti, can see only, uta, it is so said, va, either, tamaha, the mode of ignorance, cha, and yat mayaya, by the illusory energy of whom mohita has been bewildered, chetasaha, the core of whose heart, tvam, your lordship, vidhu, no, swasamstam, situated in one's own body, na, not, bahi prakashaha, those who can see only the products of external energy. Srila Prabhupada's translation. My Lord, you are fully situated in everyone's heart, But the living entities covered by the material body cannot see you, for they are influenced by the external energy conducted by the three modes of material nature. Their intelligence being covered by sattva-gun, rajagun, and tamagun, they can see only the actions and reactions of these three modes of material nature. Because of the actions and reactions of the mode of ignorance, whether the living entities are awake or sleeping, they can see only the workings of material nature. They cannot see your lordship. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Unless one is situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, one is unable to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart. However, because the conditioned souls are influenced by material nature, they can see only the actions and reactions of material nature, but not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One therefore must purify himself internally and externally. Apavitra pavitro va, sarvavastam gatopi va, yat smaret pundarikaksham ya baya bhyantara suchihi. To keep ourselves externally clean, we should bathe 3 times daily. And for internal cleanliness, we must cleanse the heart by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. The members of the Krishna consciousness movement must always follow this principle, bhaya bhayantara suchihi. Then it will one day be possible to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Yedeha bhajastri guna pradana gunan vipasyat yuta va tamascha yan mayaya mohita cheta tastvam vidu swasamstam na bahi pralakshaha. My Lord, you are fully situated in everyone's heart, but the living entities covered by the material body cannot see you, for they are influenced by the external energy conducted by the 3 modes of material nature. Their intelligence being covered by sattva-gun, rajagun, and tamagun, they can see only the actions and reactions of these 3 modes of material nature. Because of the actions and reactions of the mode of ignorance, whether the living entities are awake or sleeping, they can see only the workings of material nature. They cannot see your lordship. So here, Amsuman is talking to Lord Kapila Dev. Again, what's his mission? Remember his mission? He wants to get the horse and to liberate his uncles. Right. So yesterday he was explaining that it's not surprising that his uncles were bewildered. In other words, the Lord Kapila Dev should have mercy on them and upon him. So in yesterday's verse, we got the understanding that we need mercy. Otherwise, we cannot clearly see what a goal is or how to achieve it. We cannot see that the ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. So we can ask, so who gets mercy? Yes? If we need mercy, who gets mercy? Is it only given to some people? And if it's only given to some people, what's the criteria for getting it? You know, do they run out? In London, they have a Chaitanya Charitamrita class on Saturdays, and they were reading about the prasadam that was served out during the Rath Yatra. You know, Krishnadas Kaviraj likes to describe prasadam in great detail. Yes? Any of you who read Chaitanya Charitamrita? Prabhupada comments that he must have been a very expert cook. So Pragosh Prabhu was giving a class on one of those verses with this list of the prasadam, and he made the point that the public, whatever criticisms they have of us, they never criticize our food. They always like our prasadam. And he was talking about one festival the devotees had attended, and there were so many people wanting prasadam that they ran out. And so the organizers of the festival got them some big squash, like zucchini, but mammoth squash, which they cut into pieces, and they had some pakora batter left. And so they fried pakoras with the rest of that. They were giving that out, and then again they ran out. So we might think that prasadam in a greater sense is that we can run out of it, right? We don't have any more pakora batter. We don't have any more zucchini. We can't make no more prasadam. And there's a nice verse, Bhagavad Gita 264, where Krishna says, if you become free from attachment and aversion, and you control your senses, that you will get Bhagavat prasadam. And Vaisheshika Prabhu likes to chant this verse before we eat prasadam. And I pointed out to him, I said, well, this Bhagavad prasadam is not talking about samosas. But we may be thinking like that. You know, well, the Lord's mercy, it's just for these devotees. It's just for the sannyasis, or it's just for the big book distributors, right? And then they're going to run out. And like at this festival, they had to say, sorry, we don't have anything else. Is it like that? I mean, I've been to classes in the Hare Krishna movement many, many years ago when our whole movement was focused on book distribution. You know, Prabhupada was really pushing book distribution. I remember our temple commander giving a class where he was saying that book distribution is in the mood of the gopis who want to give the mercy of Krishna to everyone. And if you want to become a gopi, you have to go out in book distribution. And those of you who don't go out and distribute books, you'll be lucky to be a rock in Vaikuntha. He actually said that. Yeah. So we might think like that. It's only for the book distributors. You know, the devotees tried to, in Atlanta, when they were asking Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? And they expected Prabhupada to say the book distributors. And then he said, if you love Krishna. Right? Or we might think, you know, the mercy is only given to the little quiet devotees in the back of the room who never take any leadership roles and who just, you know, do whatever's asked of them. They just sweep the floor and cut up the vegetables and wash the pots. Maybe they get all the mercy. And there's not mercy available to everybody. But actually, the mercy of the Lord is always available to everybody. Everybody. In the last Chatra Sloki of the Bhagavatam, the Lord tells Lord Brahma that one should search for the absolute truth in all times, in all places, in all circumstances. And in Prabhupada's purport, echoing our previous acharyas, he talks about that the Lord incarnates even among lower species, and that the Lord's mercy is available even to the worms. So there you go. Everybody, even the worms. And in this verse, Amsuman is talking about what is our responsibility, and Prabhupada in the purport is also echoing what is our responsibility to receive that mercy. And this fitness, or this responsibility, Prabhupada is defining in this purport as what? Can you give me one word from the purport? What's the one word that summarizes Prabhupada's point in the purport about our fitness to receive this mercy? Purification, yes, or cleanliness. Prabhupada's using the word cleanliness, purification, cleanliness, yes. So the Lord's mercy is always available, but we have to become a fit receptacle. And to achieve this fitness, we have to be clean in all circumstances. So let's look at the fact that the Lord's mercy is all around us. So there's a lecture Prabhupada gave on the Nectar Devotion in October 24th, 1972 in Vrindavan, where he wrote, Krishna will give you chance. He's giving chance always, 24 hours imperceptibly, but we cannot appreciate very much. So every moment, Prabhupada is saying, Krishna is giving us a chance. Again, Prabhupada is saying we may not appreciate it. We might think, well, I only get a chance when I go to Vrindavan, or I only get a chance when I come and see the beautiful deities here. Or I only get a chance if I go to a big festival. You know, or I only get a chance when I'm in the personal presence of my spiritual master, or something like that. I only get a chance when I'm chanting my japa. But Prabhupada's saying Krishna's giving us a chance 24 hours imperceptibly. That means that every moment Krishna's mercy is available. And Krishna is always with us. Here, Amsuman is saying that Krishna is within our heart. He's always with us. You know, we're running looking for him here and there, but actually he's right next to us all the time. We're like someone looking for their glasses when it's on their face. My mother used to sometimes put her reading glasses like on top of her head, and then she'd walk around looking for her reading glasses. You know, or somebody turning on the flashlight on their phone looking for their flashlight. These things happen, right? You have your keys in your hand and you're looking for your keys. Do we sometimes do these sort of things? Yes. Sometimes we're looking for something and we can't find it, and we go and buy another one. As soon as we buy another one, we find the original one that we already had. So Krishna's in our heart, and he also talks about, I think I talked about this last time. I taught Krishna meditations when I was here last time, I think, right? How Krishna is present in the light of the sun, and there's no sunlight in this room. But Krishna also says he's the light in all luminous objects. He's the light in our phones, our computer screens, our light bulbs. The Bhagavatam says that the air around us is his breath. Every time we're breathing in the Lord's prana. The sun and the moon are his eyes. He says he's the heat and fire. Whatever heat we're feeling, that's Krishna. So he's always available like that. In Japan once, this young man asked Prabhupada, how can I see God? And Prabhupada said, see God as he's saying. See him in the taste of water, in the light of the sun. How many times would Prabhupada say that? You know, that we're all drinking water every day. Everybody drinks water every day. How can I get Krishna? Where is Krishna's mercy? It's right here in the taste of water. In our ability to digest. Our ability to do anything. Your ability to pack up that prasadam in those little bags. That ability, that's Krishna. And he's always available in the Shastra. You know, I was just hearing Prabhupada talk about how in former times, if you wanted a copy of the Shastra, you had to copy it by hand. Imagine writing down all the Bhagavad Gita verses by hand if you wanted a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Now you just go buy a book. You don't even have to buy a book. You just use your phone and go online and you can just read it. You don't even have to pay anything. You can have, you know, all of Srila Prabhupada's books and the books of the Acharyas on a device in your pocket. It can even read it to you. Right? You can have somebody read the Shastras to you 24 hours a day. I don't, you know, sometimes people say, well, how can I don't have time to read. I'm like, do you ever look at your phone? And I had someone tell me the other day, audiobooks are not real books, they have to be printed. And I'm like, you know, before there were printed books, all books were audiobooks. Printing is a modern invention. So Krishna is always there in the form of the scriptures. He's always there in the form of the holy name. One devotee just wrote me, he said, because of my work schedule, I can't chant much japa in the morning, and so I'm always feeling guilty about it. And I said, you know, there's no hard and fast rules for chanting. You can chant in the evening. You can chant in the middle of the day. Prabhupada said you can chant on the train, on the bus. Actually, my husband was standing right near Prabhupada where he said, you know, not that you bring your beads, but he said you can chant in the toilet room. There's no restriction. You're on your deathbed in the hospital room. You're not like, I can't chant Hare Krishna. He's always there. We can chant in our mind. Prabhupada was asked, should you chant loudly, silently? Sometimes he says you should chant loudly enough so you can hear yourself. But other times he'll say it doesn't matter. Quietly, silently, loudly. He's always there. He's fully there. As Lord Chaitanya says, all his potencies are there. As here in today's verse, we're reading that Krishna is there complete in our heart. He's always in our heart. And one devotee wrote a very nice song about Krishna that she called Closer Than Your Breath. He's right there in our heart. It may be a difficult thing to understand. You know, other people in this world, it's not like that. I have to be in their physical presence. I mean, I can talk to them on the phone or something in a distant place. But I'm with them or not with them. I go out of the room, I'm not with them anymore. But wherever I go, there's Krishna. He's with me. And he's with me in all of his forms. We say, Bahir Nisingo, Hridaye Nisingo. Do you think about that when you say that? Lord Nrsingadev is in my heart? That's pretty intense, actually. I'm thinking, what's he doing there exactly? In which of his forms is he in my heart? I'm not quite sure if I want him in my heart with his blood-soaked mane and his intestines around his neck. I'm not sure if that's the form of Nrsingadev I want in my heart. But the Lord, all of his incarnations are there in our heart. He's right there. He's always ready to give us his mercy. You know, we're like little children having a temper tantrum, and the parent is just patiently sitting, waiting, okay, let me know when you're done. And Prabhupada said he's more eager to talk to us than we are to talk to him. Prabhupada always says that the parent, they're more eager to talk to the adult child than the adult child is eager to talk to the parent. And as a parent of adult children and adult grandchildren, I can tell you that is definitely true. You know, that I'm more eager to talk to my kids and grandkids than they are to contact me. It's just the way it is. Prabhupada said that we take one step towards Krishna, he takes 10 steps towards us. So his mercy is always there, and Krishna doesn't discriminate. He also doesn't discriminate. Are you a criminal like Jagai and Madai? Are you coming to kill him like Putana? You know, there's in the Ramayana, Bibhishan keeps trying to tell Ravana that Ram is God, you should surrender to him. And Ravana doesn't like this good advice. One of the signs, by the way, that we really have a lot of false ego is that we don't like good advice. If it contradicts our false ego. So Ravana finally got so angry at Bibhishan that he basically threatened to imprison him. And so Bibhishan just left with some of his friends. He just left. Prabhupada said it was like he took sannyas. Well, he didn't actually, because he became later crowned as the king and went back to his family. But he had this mood that I'm giving up everything. I'm giving up my connection with my home, with my family, with everything. And he came, Ram and the monkeys were on the other side of the ocean at that point. And Bibhishan comes to surrender. And all of the Lakshman and all of the members of the monkey army, Sugriva's army, except for Hanuman, they all said, you shouldn't accept Bibhishan. He's a Rakshasa. He's Ravana's brother. He's probably come as a spy. He's probably come to, you know, sabotage our war effort. And it's funny, Lakshman says, well, anyone who leaves his brother in a time of difficulty can't be trusted. Always found that very charming. And then Hanuman speaks up and he said, actually, Bibhishan spoke up on my behalf in Lanka. It was Bibhishan who said, you can't kill a messenger. So Hanuman said, we should accept him. And then Ram says, I will accept anyone who surrenders as a friend. He said, even if Ravana himself would surrender, I would accept him. So his mercy was even if Ravana said, I surrender. Ram would say, okay, well, forget everything. Never mind you stole my wife and caused me all this trouble. That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I don't think I would do that. If someone like kidnapped my kid and I had to spend months looking for them and all this anxiety, and then I come and they finally say, I'm sorry, I wouldn't say, well, yeah, just forget about all the past. I probably wouldn't do that. But Krishna's that merciful that he does that. Lord Nityananda excuses Jagai and Madai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes all their sinful reactions on himself. They were heavy-duty criminals. They weren't petty criminals. They were really severe criminals. And still, the Lord showed them mercy because they surrendered. So the Lord's mercy there for everyone. And then we might say, well, I don't feel like I'm getting enough of it. I mean, I think we're all aware that we've gotten a lot of mercy, but if we're not yet, as Prabhupada says at the end of this purport, seeing the Lord face to face all the time, we talked about yesterday that without getting the Lord's mercy, we can't see things clearly. So if we're not always seeing the Lord face to face, we might say, well, I haven't gotten enough mercy. And we might think that this is God's problem. That's how the 7th canto begins. Is this God's problem? Is God partial? And there are many religionists who think like that. The Calvinists, they think like that. There's already decided, who's going to heaven, who's going to hell. There's the elect. If you're not in the list, oh, well, too bad on you. So we might think, well, Krishna's withholding. But the question is, am I a fit receptacle of the Lord's mercy? Do I really want it? I mean, this asking for mercy, which we talked about yesterday, is part of humility, part of being a fit receptacle. Of course, it depends how you ask for mercy. If you ask for mercy because you think you're entitled to it, that doesn't work. I've donated so much money, my name's on a plaque in the temple. You know, I wave so many sticks of incense. Whatever. You know, I'm entitled to mercy. That's actually Rajagun, isn't it? You give something with the idea of getting something back. Or if we ask for mercy as a shortcut, I run into this all the time. You know, people come to me, Mataji, Mataji, give me your blessings. And I'm thinking, do you think that's a shortcut? Like, you know, I think of it like people are asking for magic dust, you know. I'm just going to go, okay, now I don't have to actually work to purify myself. I've just got the blessings, you know. So people often want mercy as a shortcut. Like Ravana wanted to build a stairway to heaven instead of actually being a pious person. So we're thinking, you know, if I just do this, I'll get some mercy, and then I won't have to give up my false ego. So we have a number of analogies about why we have to be a fit receptacle. One is that in this room, there's radio waves and television waves. This room is full of, you know, Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi in this room. There's television. There's radio. I don't see it. I have to have the right machine, and it has to be tuned in properly. But if you tune in properly, you can capture it. So you might say, oh, it's not here, I don't see it. I remember my mother-in-law saying how when she was a child, she could understand telephone or radio, but she was like, how are they going to do television? You know, she was living before television was invented. She was like, how are they going to project pictures through the air? Like, she couldn't figure that out. Right? So we might doubt, and we might say, Krishna's mercy is not here, but we have to have something to connect with it. Also, the analogy is also often given about the owl who doesn't see the sun because they're nocturnal. So if you're only awake at night, you might not believe that there's a sun. Or if you keep dark shades in your room, you might not, oh, there's sunshine outside. Actually, one time I went to Vrindavan, and my husband had asked me to get a CD from someone. So it took me a while to find this person. Anyway, when I found this devotee, I had to go up to their room in the MBT to get the CD, and the windows were all covered with dark shades, and the whole room smelled like mildew. It was like this really like suffocating smell. And the person there who sold me the CD, he was saying, "Where's the bliss? I'm here in Vrindavan, but there's no bliss. Where is all the bliss gone?" I didn't say anything because I figured this person was not going to be at all receptive to anything I had to say. But I was thinking, you're the one keeping yourself from the bliss. Why don't you get out of your room? Why don't you open up your windows? You got to go to the kirtan, right? You got to open the book. You got to pick up your japa beads, right? You got to do that. This devotee was telling me, she said, I have this sleep problem that I wake up every night at midnight and don't fall back to sleep till 2 o'clock, and I just pick up my phone and watch stupid things. What can I do about it? You know, and I said, what about picking up your japa beads? Oh, I don't want to pick up my japa beads. Then what are you going to do? I said, you know, turn off your phone, put it in another room. Just have a clock by your bed for the time. I said, or have audio books on your phone if you really want to have your phone. I said, put apps, you can stop apps, you know, there's things you can do to your phone so that you can't access apps at a certain time. I said, use one of those, like your child-proofing things they have on their phone. And listen to Prabhupada's books as audiobooks or something. Well, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, then how can I help you? Right? Another analogy Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati gives is you're down in a well and someone throws a rope. But then you have to grab the rope. There's something we have to do on our part. Another analogy Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati gives is someone holding onto a tree. They're like hugging the tree. And they're saying, "Get me away from this tree! Get me away from this tree!" I actually realized that it's like this with all of our anarthas. We're holding them. We're just like holding them. And we think that they're being imposed upon us. We think Maya is forcing us through the modes of nature. But she's not. She's attracting us with the modes of nature. We're grabbing and we're holding. All right, now let's say we actually become a fit receptacle. Then what will happen? What will we achieve? So Prabhupada says we will see the Lord face to face. And we'll see him everywhere. Premanjana tarita bhakti vilochanena santas sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam sharma sundara machinta gunaswarupa. We'll actually see that everything, we'll actually experience, oh, the water is Krishna. The air is Krishna's prana, the trees are his hairs. We'll see him everywhere and in everything. Prabhupada also says, then our duties will become crystal clear by his grace. We'll know exactly what to do. I mean, in Sattva Gun, we see what's binding and what's liberating, but when we become clarified and we're fit receptacles for the Lord's mercy, then we know exactly what to do. Mm-hmm. And all of our doubts will be cleared. You have at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna asks Arjuna, so are all your doubts? Yes, all my doubts are cleared. Mm-hmm. So how do we become fit? How do we become good? Would that be nice? Yes? So how are we going to do this? So we have to do this in all levels of existence. Prabhupada talks about taking bath, and he talks about chanting Hare Krishna. Mm-hmm. And we could relate again to the previous verse about asking for mercy, having a mood of humility. So although here we're talking about being free from all three gunas, including the mode of goodness, and Prabhupada's going to pick up about this again in the next verse, still, if we're going to be in the gunas, better to be in the mode of goodness. We can at least raise ourselves to sattva gun. Even that is insufficient. As I said yesterday, in sattva gun, there's also a kind of false ego that I am very spiritual. So there's that kind of false ego. But Jayapataka Maharaj compared sattva gun to an airport. He said, you're not going anywhere yet, but it's where you get the plane. Right? So there's a very nice statement in Bhagavatam 719 purport about the mode of goodness. Prabhupada says, Krishna is prepared to give bhakti yoga to everyone, but one must be capable of receiving it. That is the secret. According to one's attitude, Krishna becomes one's direct advisor, or Krishna becomes unknown. This is not Krishna's partiality. It is his response to one's ability to understand him. Krishna is equal to everyone, and according to one's ability to receive the favor of Krishna, one advances in Krishna consciousness. The more one advances in sattva gun, the more his brilliance is exhibited by devotional service. But the more one is covered by rajagun and tamagun, the less visible his brilliance, for he is covered by these qualities. So here again, in today's verse, although Amsuman is condemning all three gunas, he's particularly condemning tamagun. So let's look a little bit at sattva gun. What is kind of the cleanliness of sattva gun? And if we turn to the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about austerities of the body, speech, and mind in sattva gun. Does anyone know of the austerities of the body in sattva gun? Anyone know any of those austerities of the body? To respect the elders, yes. Worship of the parents. And worship of the brahmanas. Yes, cleanliness. Prabhupada talks about bathing 3 times a day. Right? Changing our clothes. Right? I remember my mother said, why are you washing your clothes every day now that you've joined the Hare Krishna movement? Well, a lot of people out in the world, you know, they just take their clothes to the dry cleaner occasionally. Like wear it for a week and then take it to the dry cleaner. Truthfulness would be speech. So body, anything else with body? Yes?
Austerities.
Well, yeah, but I'm asking what they are.
Like fasting or Mataji.
Okay, that's a good one, although it's not mentioned there. But yeah, that's mentioned in other places. Yeah. Yeah? Not mentioned as an austerity of the body and goodness in the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah? Huh? Get up in the morning, again, very good, but not mentioned as one of the austerities of the body in the Bhagavad Gita in Sattva-guna. And you're looking it up on your phone. Oh my. Yes? Eating food that's not spicy, that's food in the mode of goodness, yes. We have to tell this to some of our cooks in the Hare Krishna movement. I once went to a temple where there were chilies in everything, even the plain rice. It was a Sunday feast. The only thing I could eat at that Sunday feast was the sweet rice. Like everything, you could see all the chilies in the plain rice. So that's food, yeah, eating food in the mode of goodness. But I'm looking particularly at the austerities of the body in Sattva-guna. These are all great answers, but they're just not in this particular place. Actually, who said you said deity worship? Who said deity worship? So you could say worship of the Supreme Lord. Okay, that is one of the austerities. Sorry, that's my mistake. Well, it's particularly celibacy. So we have celibacy. The other ones are worship of the spiritual master, simplicity, not having too much stuff. So an austerity of the body in Sattva-guna is not having too much stuff. You don't need, you know, like 100 pairs of shoes and, right? And also nonviolence. So the austerities of the body in Sattva-guna are worship of the Lord, worship of the Brahmanas, worship of Guru, worship of the parents, being clean, so bathing the body, having clean clothes, having a clean house. Yeah? Simplicity, again, which means not having too much stuff. Nonviolence, which includes like being a vegetarian. And celibacy, which can also include, of course, proper behavior in marriage. That's also considered celibacy. Okay, what about of the mind? So there's 5 austerities of the mind. Yes? Thinking about Lord Krishna. Well, that's definitely part of bhakti, but that's not one of the austerities of the mind in Sattva-guna. Yes? Okay. Self-control, we could say that. This is again Sattva-guna. We're not actually talking about bhakti here. We're talking about Sattva-guna. You're all too much into bhakti. You've already surpassed Sattva-guna. So if I'm talking about Sattva-guna, it's already, you've way past that. That's at the bottom of the hill for all of you. Satisfaction. I find that one especially difficult. To always be mentally satisfied. Yeah? To be satisfied with anything. I know some people who are like that. Like I often visit Chennai, and they told me Bhanu Swami has his headquarters there, which is a little room. And the devotees told me he never, ever, ever asks for any particular kind of prasadam, and he never complains about any prasadam. He's always just satisfied with whatever we give him. I'm like, whoa. Like, I don't know if I could do that. But always having this mental satisfaction. Again, we have simplicity of the mind. Now that doesn't mean that one should be a simpleton. But again, not having a lot of mental clutter. So physically, we don't want a lot of clutter in our home, and mentally, we don't want a lot of clutter in our mind. Gravity, which doesn't mean that you don't have any fun. That's not what that means. It doesn't mean that you just always take life seriously and you can never laugh. Prabhupada says if you're not joyful, you can't make any advancement. But at the same time, we should take very seriously the goal of life, and then purification of one's existence is an austerity of the mind. I think about how, as I was saying in 264, Krishna says, become free from attachment and aversion and regulate your senses, and then you'll get Bhagavat Prasadam. So this purification of existence and satisfaction, gravity, simplicity, are all very related to this kind of detachment. All right, austerities of speech in Sattva-gun. Truthfulness. Does that mean you absolutely always tell the truth to everybody under all circumstances? Is that what that means? The answer to that question is no. The classic example, what's the classic example given of when you don't tell the truth? A murderer is coming and asking you where their victim is an intended murderer is saying, did you see where my victim went? You don't tell them. You don't say, oh, they went that way. Yeah. And the sages are sometimes silent. We don't have to tell everybody the truth about everything. And in fact, sometimes it's offensive, like to preach the glories of the holy name to the faithless. So to tell somebody something that they're not ready to hear is actually an offense. Interesting, isn't it? And then we have in the 18th chapter, I think it's 1845, where Prabhupada says lying is compulsory for the Vaishyas. And Prabhupada identified himself as a businessman. Prabhupada also says that lying and diplomacy are required for the Kshatriyas. If the Kshatriyas are totally honest, then they're going to start a war. So truthfulness is not an absolute. What are the other ones? There's only one of the austerities of speech that's an absolute. What are the other ones? Huh? Pleasing. Yes, the topics we talk about should be pleasing. Is that an absolute? Should we only talk about pleasing topics all the time? Sometimes you have to talk about unpleasant topics. I mean, we find in the Bhagavatam, like Vidura didn't want to talk about the death of the Yadu dynasty because it was not pleasing. People don't want to bring bad news. But sometimes you have to give bad news. Right? I was talking to a doctor who said, when someone dies, you just have to tell the relatives they've died. They said the more blunt you can be, the better, because if you're not blunt, people, they won't really hear you. If you just say, oh, he's gone now. One of my friends, we like to joke about how in our Hare Krishna movement, when some great devotee has died, we say they've disappeared, and how that sounds to people in general. Well, my spiritual master disappeared. And they're wondering, what does that mean? Did they just vanish like a magician, or you lost them and nobody can find them? So sometimes you have to give, sometimes bad news has to be given. Sometimes the topic has to be, you have to tell people things that aren't pleasing. Like at the program last night, someone said, what about love in this world? And I said, well, as long as we don't identify as a soul, we're going to think that we need things outside of ourselves to be happy. And as long as we think we need things outside of ourselves to be happy, then we're going to think that we need the people outside of ourselves to make us happy. And if I think that I need you to behave with me in a certain way to make me happy, that's going to contaminate my love for you. And then the person who asked the question said, well, that isn't really love at all then, is it? And I said, sorry, but yeah, you're right. I said, I'm sorry to have to say that. It has to be said. But it isn't pleasing. It isn't pleasing at all, actually. We want to think, I love my dog and I love my this and that. Okay, what's another one? Choose. Huh? Not talking like more? Well, that's certainly true, but it isn't one of the list. Huh? Well, it's not using nasty words. Not using words that are agitating to others. Like not speaking in foul language or very heavy words. Is that an absolute? No. Sometimes we have, Prabhupada would say, I'm not calling you a Buddha, Krishna's calling you a Buddha. Sometimes harsh language is necessary. Generally, we should avoid harsh language. Krishna, like Prabhupada always points out how Krishna says to Arjuna, well, speaking very learned words, the wise lament neither for the living or the dead. So he's saying, you're a fool. But he's saying it nicely. He's saying, wise people don't talk like you. So generally, we shouldn't use harsh language. Another one, there's two more. Beneficial. Everything we say should benefit ourselves and others. Is that absolute? Yes, that's the one that's absolute. Whatever we say should be beneficial to ourselves and others. If the truth isn't going to be beneficial, then be quiet. Yeah? You don't have to go up to someone and say, your baby's really ugly. You just don't need to say that. Some babies are ugly. You don't have to tell the mother that. It's not necessary. But everything we say should be beneficial. It should benefit ourselves, it should benefit others. This includes the way we talk to ourselves in our mind as well. We should never, just like with the body, we should not be violent. So with our speech, we should not be violent, ever. Ever. We may have to say something that's not pleasing. We may sometimes have to use harsh language. We may sometimes not tell somebody the whole truth about something because telling them the whole truth would not benefit them. You understand? If you think about the offense of not preaching the glories of the holy name to the faithless, the idea of that is that if the full truth will harm somebody, you put beneficial above that and say, I'm only going to tell you what you are able to digest, what's actually going to benefit you. And the last one is to regularly recite the Shastras. Again, we don't have to be reciting the Shastras 24/7. But whatever we say should be backed up by Shastra. More and more I'm seeing in our movement, people will say things without any reference to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And it disturbs me that devotees are often not trained to immediately reject such things. That we should understand, if somebody is saying, oh, it's like this, and we say, what's your source? Oh, I can't give any source. I don't know the source. And I've heard people, oh, there's this thing. Oh, and you can ask politely. You can say, oh, that's really wonderful. I'd like to know more about it. Can you tell me where that is? Oh, I don't know where it is. So things should be based on the Vedas. All right, so for all of you transcendental people here, so it's a fact that sattva guna is insufficient, but it is a starting place. It is a starting place. If we're in Rajagun or Tamagun, forget it. Our ability to understand the Lord just doesn't really exist. I mean, unless Lord Nityananda comes to preach to you personally. But that was risky. I mean, Mahaprabhu almost took their heads off. So I don't suggest that as a strategy. Don't say, well, I'm going to be in Tamagun and Rajagun, but I'm going to, go to Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya will excuse me. So at least we should be at Sattvagun in our body, our mind, and our speech. But it's not sufficient. As who was saying we should always think of Krishna? Was that you? Who was saying that we should always think of Krishna? Was that the boy? He's now left. We want to make an effort to always be absorbed in Krishna. We may not achieve it, but we want to make an effort, and we don't want to give up about it. If you think, okay, I've forgotten Krishna for the last 2 hours, we'll start thinking about him now. I've spaced out on my last round. Okay, we'll start focusing now. If we think about him, it'll be much easier to find out that he's always there and receive his mercy. Sattva is important, undoubtedly, but we don't just want to hang around the airport forever. We want to actually get on the plane. But we have to make that effort. That's really what sadhana bhakti is all about. Sadhana bhakti is about making the deliberate effort to think of Krishna. And people resist that. They're saying, well, I have to wait till I'm more purified to think of Krishna. Actually, Arjuna asked this question in the beginning of the 12th chapter. Should I first become purified and then think of you? And Krishna says, no, become purified by thinking of me. It says, Klecho dikatarastesham avyakta shaktitechasam avyakta hi gatir dukam tenavad bhiravapyute. He said it's going to be a very troublesome path to try to become purified first in another way and then take up bhakti. When Srila Rupa Goswami says sadhana bhakti means always thinking of Krishna, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the beginners may not be able to do that, but at least during their sadhana time they should think of Krishna. At least when we're chanting our japa, we're chanting our Gayatri, we're worshiping the deity, we're offering our food, we're hearing the Shastra, at least during that time we should think of Krishna. And we should try throughout the day to think of Krishna. We reach out to him, he'll reach out back to us. Yeah? I remember I had a sister and brother-in-law who lived overseas, and they would come regularly to America, and they'd usually come to New York, where my parents were. And we would always drive up to New York to see them. And one time I said, you can always come to see us, too. And my sister said, well, it's a long way from New York to where you live. I said, yeah, that's true in both directions. So they did one time come to visit us. So, if we want to feel Krishna's reaching out to us, we've also got to reach out to him. People say, well, I'll wait. When Krishna gives me his mercy, then I'll think of him. No, reach out to him, reach out to him. And keep doing that. And eventually we start feeling the Krishna's mercy. So the whole process of sadhana bhakti is that we become a fit receptacle for what's already there. Prabhupada's giving us the 4 regulative principles to bring us to sattvagun. That's not bhakti. Sattvagun is not bhakti. But he's giving us those principles, that way of life, to have us be at least in sattvagun. And then he's giving us a process by which we can eventually come to see Krishna face to face. What did Prabhupada say? It's a simple process, but the execution is somewhat difficult because we have to deal with our false ego. We're not denying that the execution of it is not always easy, but the process itself is very simple. We can explain the process very easily. It's not some very complex or convoluted process. So what can we do? Is there some way we can become a more fit receptacle? Is there something we could do in our life? I always like to ask people to try to make a small change that has a big effect. In America, we call that getting the biggest bang for your buck. Buck is slang for $1. So in other words, what can I buy for $1 that's going to be, that I'm going to get the greatest value for what I'm spending? You understand? Spend a small amount of money for a big value. So what's one small change we can make in our life that would really help us become a fit reciprocal? Is there something we can do? Prabhupada's really emphasizing cleanliness here. Is there something we can do in terms of cleanliness? Is there something we can do in terms of simplicity? Is there something we can do in terms of how we speak, including how we speak to ourselves? Is there some way that is some change we could make with our mind, with mental detachment? Is there some way we can increase the quality or the quantity of some part of our sadhana? And I think often devotees look for some huge change and then just feel, well, I can't do that. So look for a small change. Can I meditate more in the kirtan? Right, this morning class I was listening to from Prabhupada, he said, kirtan is by yourself and sankirtan is with others. And he said, people in the evening, they just, why aren't they willing to do kirtan? Why are they doing so many other things instead of having kirtan? Could we sit down and have a kirtan for 5 minutes in the evening? Could I hear my rounds better? Could I read with more attention? Could I read for another 5 minutes? Could I get rid of some of the junk in my house? What could I possibly do to make myself more of a fit receptacle? Something small that I'm willing to do and that I'm probably going to follow through on. Could I turn off the distracting apps on my phone? Put my phone in the other room at night so that I don't space out in the middle of the night. Is there something small that I could do? So questions, comments, additions, subtractions, chastisements, corrections?
Very small and easy question.
Okay.
As I was scrolling, Mataji, as I was scrolling through my phone in Bhagavad Gita, simplicity of the mind. Simplicity, Prabhupada translates as without duplicity.
Very nice addition, yes, without duplicity. Not being a devious person. Thank you. Yes?
Thank you, Mataji, for the nice class. Mataji, you mentioned in order to get mercy, we have to do our side, our endeavor to get it, like you gave the example of the well and the rope. So I wanted to ask, how do we decide how much effort is needed to get that mercy? Does it depend on how much service we're doing, and that's the amount of mercy we'll get?
Well, quantity is good. We shouldn't be lazy. But quality is also important. And we should also live a balanced life. You should live a balanced life. Don't do so much external service that you have no time to chant. Krishna says eating, sleeping, working, and recreation should be balanced. You also need some time for just relaxation. Yes? Eating, sleeping, working, and recreation, recreation. Prabhupada would spend time every day taking a morning walk for his health. So sometimes people think, well, I'll just work really hard on the physical level, and then they burn out, right? So this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. We want to run the whole distance. So, but it's also quantity, it's also motive. If I'm doing a lot of external things that are very easily measurable by others, am I doing it to be measured by others? Am I doing it to be praised by others? Then we're actually doing bhakti in Rajagun, which limits our receptivity to Krishna. Am I doing service in tamagun, in anger? I don't know, why do I have to do this? So it's also the quality. So all those things come into play. But it's also service, again, to lead a balanced, wholesome life. so that you can still be doing service when you're 80. You follow?
Yes.
Yes?
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
You mentioned about three modes, and sometimes even with the service, the nature of the services can be like if you're managing some project or some position, something managing it for the service also, the action itself can be also the Rajoguna. Like for example, Arjuna was
Very good question. Yeah?
Arjuna was in a fight, and then his act was Rajoguna, but we see from Bhagavad Gita, learn from Bhagavad Gita, but that he was in a pure goodness at the same time.
Actually, his action wasn't Rajaguna. Because Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita 2:45, Nishtraigunya Bhavarjuna. So right away in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna, get above the modes.
That's right. So this is what my question is.
So it apparently looked like his fighting was in Rajaguna, but it wasn't. It wasn't. And in tomorrow's purport, Prabhupada's going to say, you got to get above all the modes. So if you're managing something for Krishna in Rajagun, Lord Kapila is telling you, don't do that. Lord Kapila says there's bhakti in Tamagun, bhakti in Rajagun, bhakti in Sattvagun, and transcendent bhakti. If you're going to be overcome by false ego, have Sattvagun false ego. That's still bad. It's still arrogance. But at least it's a springboard.
What is
But you don't need to use Rajagun to manage.
What is Sattvagun false ego?
I am spiritual.
But that's still.
I am so much better than materialistic people who aren't spiritual. It's still pride. We don't need to pull from any of the gunas ever. We don't need to pull energy from the gunas. So Mayadev is saying, if you want to do this work, you've got to pull from Rajagun. And we should say, no, I don't. Or if you want to do this work, you should pull from Sattvagun. You want to preach to the yoga people? Pull from Sattvagun. We're like, no, thanks.
I'm just trying to understand that if you're maybe your services are result driven.
It doesn't matter what service you do.
How do you bring, like, how can I bring myself to the mode of goodness at least while doing that?
Well, interestingly, Krishna says that unbreakable determination is in Sattvagun. Determination in Rajagun is dependent on the circumstances. So a person will be very determined in Rajagun if they think they're going to get a good result. And if they don't think they're going to get a good result, then they lose their determination. Whereas in Sattvagun, you're determined through success and failure. Success and failure don't affect you. So how can we do that? We can practice mental detachment. We can practice mental detachment. I mean, how much does Krishna talk about this? You know, detachment from good and bad, and heat and cold, and happiness and distress, and honor and dishonor, and fame and infamy. Practice it. It is a practice. Be like the ocean, that the rivers come into it, you're not disturbed. One who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they appear, nor long for them when they disappear, always remaining neutral, knowing that the modes are active, and that one is transcendental to them. So Rajagun may fill your body, and you're just like, oh, there's Rajagun. And you don't have to act on it. You don't have to try to get rid of it. You can't get rid of it. It's Krishna's energy. But you don't have to act on it. All of us have so many thoughts and desires that we laugh at, isn't it? Yes? And we're just like, well, that's dumb. I'm not going to do that. Correct? Yes? Don't all of us do that every single day? Some thought or desire enters the mind and we don't try to suppress it or repress it, and nor do we act on it. We just look at it and go, I'm not interested in that. That's dumb. So we can do that with the gunas. Learn to recognize them and just say, I'm not having anything to do with it. I'm not interested. Just like you're looking at something online and there's an advertisement. You can't even always delete those things. They have this little tiny X in the corner, you know. But you don't have to hate it, and nor do you have to buy the thing. You just ignore it. You just read the thing you came to read and you ignore the average. Yes? Do we do that? There's a video you want to watch and there's some advertisement first and it goes on for a few seconds before you can skip it and you just ignore it. You don't hate it. You don't try to get rid of it and hate it, and nor do you jump in, oh my God, I got to buy everything that's advertised to me. You just don't pay attention to it. So the gunas are like that. Would you like to do this? Would you like to do this? No. You don't have to pull from Rajagun to manage. If you do pull from Rajagun to manage, it will contaminate your management. It will make what you're doing far less valuable. And you'll end up hurting people that you're managing. Krishna's got all potencies in his name. Ask Krishna to enliven you with his potency. He's a great manager, correct? Krishna's the best manager. Krishna has managerial potencies that have nothing to do with the gunas. Ask to be empowered with those. Go to Lord Chaitanya. One who remembers Lord Chaitanya, even difficult things become easy. And if you forget Lord Chaitanya, easy things become difficult. When I was running a school, every day I went to Lord Chaitanya, I'm like, Gaura Shakti, Gaura Shakti, Gaura Shakti, Gaura Shakti. Is that all right?
Yes, ma'am.
As for Gaura Shakti, has to be infused with his energy. We call him Vishvambhar. He's maintaining the whole universe. Please empower me with your divine energy of management. Let me manage as your divine agent, not as the puppet of Rajagun. Is that all right?
Thank you once.
Okay, yes? This will be the last one.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank
Hare
you for the
Krishna.
class. I have two questions. One is similar question that Prabhuji asked, like about Arjuna. So correct me if I'm wrong. I always thought like Arjuna is doing bhakti because Arjuna is fighting for the pleasure of Krishna. So
Yes.
that is above all the guna because
Correct.
he is pleasing Krishna.
Correct,
So it's not Rajogun.
correct.
Okay, I thought that. And second question is about books. So as you said, like previously it was all audio, like it was passed through words.
Yes.
And
Used to be, books were only audio books.
yeah, and recently we started doing books. But with the present technology, everything is available on the phone with a click, and you can get books, all the e-books of all the acharyas.
Yes.
So what about book distributions on the street, like where we give like particular book, like do we focus more on like, because even in Krishna book 3rd page we have like QR codes. So how should we look into that? Because
We
like,
just want people to read the Shastras. Whether they read them in print books or e-books or audio books should be irrelevant to us.
and also all the lectures are available on YouTube and Desire Tree. So
Yes?
which is the best way to preach in that sense, like when you meet your friends, okay, buy this book, or okay, subscribe to this channel, or...
It doesn't matter. Whatever will get them to read and to hear.
Thank you, Mataji.
Go for the individual person. Some people want print books, some people want e-books, some people want audio books. That's irrelevant. What is it that's going to get the person to engage, that particular person? And sometimes a person wants everything. I have people who say, yeah, I bought this book in print and e-book and audio book. And I'm like, okay. You know, so that's... Whatever will get people to engage with the Shastra and with Srila Prabhupada, that's going to be different for different people, correct? It's not a one-size-fits-all. I always remember this one woman who came to me and she said, I never read Prabhupada's books. I said, why not? And she said, well, the devotees told me that I have to first read the Bhagavad Gita, and then I have to read the whole Bhagavatam, and then I have to read the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, but I don't like the Bhagavad Gita, so I don't read anything. She said, I'm not allowed to read anything until I finish the Bhagavad Gita. She said, but I don't particularly enjoy the Bhagavad Gita. I said, what book do you enjoy? She said, Nectar Devotion. I said, why don't you read that? She said, well, I'm not allowed to. I have to finish the Bhagavad Gita and the whole Bhagavatam and the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. I said, we used to give out, sell Nectar Devotion on the street to people. I used to go to the airports and sell nectar. We didn't say, have you read the whole Bhagavatam and the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita? We would just sell them the Nectar Devotion. I said, read the Nectar Devotion. All right?
Thank you.
Whatever's going to work for that person. Our purpose is, like we're saying, speech should be beneficial. Whatever's going to benefit the person, whatever's going to connect that person at this time, in this moment in their life, do that. Even if you might say, well, such and such is the best. Well, is it the best for this person at this time is another question. What's best for this? We're personalists. So what's going to be best for this person at this time in their life? Is that all right? Thank you very much. Bye. Anything good in this class is from Srila Prabhupada and the Bhagavatam and our Acharyas. Anything bad in this class is my responsibility. So I hope that you can please take the good and leave aside the bad. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.